का एक quote है, parents are like bow, children like arrow. The more a bow bends and stretches, the farther the arrow flies. सर आपके पिताजी संस्कृत के विद्वान हैं, विश्वनाथ में पुरोहित रहे हैं. Coming from such a strong culture, I am sure a lot of things get imprinted on a mind of a child. How much influence that imprinting has on your writing style?
Thank you. You began with a very good question. I should clarify though that in this book, the quote that you've referred to, I had used it in my dedication at the beginning, and I said it's actually a quote from Khalil Gibran. And then I'd added to that, because Khalil Gibran had said that parents are like a bow and children like the arrow. And then I added to that, saying that the more the bow bends and stretches, the farther the arrow flies. And I fly not because I'm special, but because my parents stretched for me. And all of us who've achieved things, nobody ever achieves things on his own. We stand on the shoulders of our parents and our ancestors, because they sacrificed to take us forward, to give us opportunities that they didn't get. In my family, our generation was the first generation to be educated in the English medium. My parents were educated in the Hindi medium. My grandfather, you're right, was a Pandit at Vishwanathji. He was a Sanskrit scholar. He used to teach at BHU, but we were completely Hindi focused. And at home we speak Hindi, which is why I'm very comfortable with Hindi as well. But my parents gave the four of us siblings an education that was way beyond their income and social status. And the only thing they ever demanded, I lost my father sadly last year. He was 81, passed away peacefully in his sleep. But the only thing and my mother fortunately is still around, the only thing our parents ever demanded from the four of us siblings, for all the sacrifices that they've made from us, is that you will earn this sacrifice, you will achieve things. That's all that they ever demanded, that you will make us proud, you will achieve things. No matter what the four of you, I'm one of four siblings, no matter what field the four of you pick, you must be number one. And that drives us, because we must achieve that to earn the sacrifices that our parents made.
Thank you, sir. I would invite Nilambika to ask the next question.
Good evening, sir. In today's modern time, you bought in books based on mythology and they were so successful. What drove you to take this leap of faith?
You know, there's this line that courage and stupidity are two sides of the same coin, and you can only know what you are, when you're looking at things from hindsight, when you've already gone ahead. So I wasn't really planning on being an author, and I was a banker, as I hope many people know, and spent 14 years as a banker. It's just a story that grabbed my soul, and I started writing it. I didn't really think about where it was going to go. So therefore, I wasn't thinking of what genre I should write in. I just wrote what came to me, and as I explained, my family, we are deeply imbibed in our traditions, and so therefore, obviously, a story emerged in an area where I had knowledge. So I wasn't really planning anything, it's just natural that a story emerged here. And you're right, many publishers actually rejected my first book because they said that you picked a wrong subject, so I was told. I'm talking about 2008, 2009. My first book was published in 2010. They said that the youth are not interested in this subject, and that they are interested only in campus romance novels, etc. I was also told that, and I kid you not, a publisher had actually told me this, that if you want to become a bestseller, then you have to dumb down the novel a bit. And I was told that your novels are very long, and you have these gyan sessions every second, third chapter, and the assumption is, no, that's not going to work. And I thought that was a very bigoted and biased way to look at your own customers, that assuming that they are stupid is actually not true. And the point I learnt, I guess, is that all of us have different aspects in our lives. We may have a part, like I love movies, so You know, I loved Interstellar. How many of you guys have seen Interstellar, the movie? Yeah, it's an intense movie. You have to pay attention, otherwise you lose, you know, track of what's going on. It does require some amount of focus, attention, intelligence. But I love Salman Khan and you know, Rajnikant movies as well. How many of you guys like Salman Khan and Rajnikant? Yeah, I mean, look, when you're going for a movie of Bhai, you're not expecting any intelligence. You just want to see Bhai, right? Doing what Bhai does. So I enjoy that too. So point is that people can enjoy both things. So there is a market for such things as well, and I learned that. And most importantly, if our stories will not work in India, then where will they work? We're the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. And this assumption that the Indian youth is not, are not interested in our culture is, I think, a false assumption. The Indian youth are deeply interested in our culture and our traditions and our land. But you just have to communicate to them in a language that they understand, in an idiom that they understand. That's my learning.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. My question is, in current times, we have seen the popularity of anti-heroes like Ravan and Duryodhan as much as heroes like Ram and Arjun. In your upcoming book, The War of Lanka, how do you manage to balance the narrative between the hero and the anti-hero?
You know, this thing of seeing things as good and evil, or hero and villain, is a relatively modern Western and Middle Eastern concept. Ancient Indians didn't have this approach. So the Sanskrit word for a hero was Nayak, and the one in opposition to the Nayak was Khalnayak, right? Khalnayak is often translated into villain in the modern day. It's actually an erroneous translation. Nayak is the one who moves the story forward. Khalnayak is the one who takes the story in any direction except forward, right? That's all there is to it. So our ancestors saw things in a very nuanced way. You know, so in the ancient versions, you know, of course, you know, the problems with Ravana are shown. You know, that he is huge anger management issues, massive ego, but his good sides were also shown. That he was a Vidwan, he was very intelligent, very talented, a brilliant musician, a brilliant warrior. He was a Shiv Bhakt, you know, just as Lord Ram was and just as Goddess Sita was. So, so our ancestors saw things in a much more nuanced way. It's a relatively modern thing where you have to see the good guy as, you know, completely good, and the villain as someone who will just, you know, do anything. That's not the, our ancestors saw things in a very nuanced shades of grey.
So taking the cue from the...
I have to keep moving, you know, leftist, rightist, you know, thoda.
So taking a cue from the previous answer you mentioned, sir, it's a woman-centric question, so giving you a little heads up here. सर वाल्मीकि रामायण का एक पार्ट का अंत होता है जब युद्ध राम और रावण के बीच में खत्म हो जाता है, और उसके बाद कहा जाता है कि फिर राम राज्य चला कई सालों तक. फिर उसके बाद एक पार्ट और ऐड किया गया जिसे हम उत्तरकांड कहते हैं. सर एक स्कूल ऑफ थॉट ये बिलीव करता है कि उत्तरकांड की ज़रूरत क्या थी. दूसरा, लव कुश और सीता परित्याग का उसमें जिक्र किया है. तो स्कूल ऑफ थॉट ये मानता है सर कि राम जैसा व्यक्ति जो कि महिलाओं की इतनी इज्जत करता था, जो कि कैकेयी के बारे में, अहिल्या के बारे में, अपनी खुद की पत्नी के बारे में, ऐसे कई प्रसंग है जहाँ पर उन्होंने बहुत आदर के साथ में महिलाओं के साथ में उनका जो कंडक्ट है वो रखा है. तो एक स्कूल ऑफ थॉट बिलीव करता है कि हो सकता है राम जी ने सीता परित्याग किया ही ना हो, और ये एक नैरेटिव है जो बनाया गया. तो सर इसमें आपकी क्या, व्हाट इज योर ओपिनियन ऑन दिस?
देखिए, कई स्कॉलर्स हैं, कई बुद्धिजीव हैं जो कहते हैं कि उत्तरकांड जो है, जो एक इंटरपोलेशन है, बाद में ऐड की गई, क्योंकि जो आपको ज्ञात होगा, देखिए रामायण तो आदि काव्य है, तो एक मीटर में है, वो एक संस्कृत मीटर में है. तो उत्तरकांड के कई सूक्त उस मीटर में नहीं बैठते हैं. तो कुछ स्कॉलर्स कहते हैं कि शायद वो बाद में ऐड किया गया था. रामचरितमानस एक्चुअली में उत्तरकांड नहीं है, वो वहीं पे समाप्त हो जाता है. लेकिन वाल्मीकि रामायण में एटलीस्ट क्रिटिकल एडिशन में, जो अभी करीब 100 साल पहले बनाया गया था, उसमें ऐड किया गया है, क्योंकि कई वाल्मीकि रामायण के जो भी स्क्रिप्ट्स पाए गए थे उसमें था. तो हाँ, एक बात है, तो कई स्कॉलर्स कहते हैं कि श्री राम ने ये नहीं किया था। लेकिन एक दूसरा भी नज़रिया है कि अगर श्री राम ने ये किया था तो उसका हम क्या मतलब निकालें? What can we learn from this? And one of the things, I had written an article on this in 2013 end, that one of the things in the Indian way is we are not supposed to judge, we are supposed to understand. Aapko, if I can do a, pop quiz out here, that you would know that if a language doesn't have a particular word, you can guess कि the concept didn't exist in that language, right? So वैदिक संस्कृत में जो ये ब्लास्फमी शब्द है, अंग्रेजी शब्द, सब जानते हैं ब्लास्फमी का मतलब क्या है कि भाई यू आर इंसल्टिंग गॉड। वैदिक संस्कृत में जो हमारे प्राचीन पूर्वजों की भाषा थी, उसमें ब्लास्फमी शब्द का कोई अनुवाद है क्या? संस्कृत में कोई है? नहीं। आप सही कह रहे हैं, उनके लिए तालियों से अभिनंदन किया जाए। आप एकदम सही कह रहे हैं, वैदिक संस्कृत में नहीं है। वैदिक संस्कृत में जो पोटैटो है, हम सब हर चीज़ में आलू डालते हैं आजकल, लेकिन पोटैटो के लिए कोई शब्द नहीं है, क्योंकि पोटैटो भारत में उस समय था ही नहीं, तो उसके था ही नहीं तो शब्द ही नहीं था। तो ये जो जजमेंट है कि कोई कहेगा आप सही हैं, आप गलत हैं, आप स्वर्ग जाएंगे, आप नर्क जाएंगे और अनंत काल तक आप जलते रहेंगे वहाँ पे, वैसा कोई कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं था। तो न्याय एक्चुअली जजमेंट नहीं है। तो जो ये मॉडर्न कॉन्सेप्ट है वो कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था। तो हमारे पूर्वज ये मानते थे यू आर नॉट सपोज टू जज, यू आर सपोज टू अंडरस्टैंड। So if we even assume that that Uttar can't happen, what do we understand from this? The thing I had written, in that article, it was an article in Hindustan Times. Praveen ji, कोई दूसरा मीडिया का नाम ले लूँ चलेगा ना? तो आप गूगल कर सकते हैं वो आर्टिकल, हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स। तो I had written out there that our gods represented certain archetypes, certain ways of life, right? So Lord Ram represented the archetype of मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम। तो ये मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम जो संस्कृत शब्द है, इस संस्कृत जो टर्म है, इसका सही अनुवाद क्या है? A lot of people translate that as the perfect man. That's actually an incomplete translation. The correct translation of मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम is the perfect follower of laws, right? Perfect follower of traditions, perfect follower of honor. अब if there's a way of life like this, you will find what we learn from leaders who follow this path is that they are fantastic for the society that they lead, but their family lives usually have a lot of challenges, and they themselves are usually quite unhappy. Lord Ram never married again, he remained unhappy personally. And then I made that point in that article that were there others like this, other Maryada Purushottams in our traditions? Look at Gautam Buddha, right? If you think about it, he set up a way of life which helps people even today. But what was his family life like? We know, right? Yashodhama, he moved away from his own son, Rahul. Today we know the meaning of the name Rahul as the son of Buddha. In those days, what did Siddharth Gautam think of his son? In those days, what did Rahul mean? In those days, Rahul meant fetters. जो chains जो बांधे जाते हैं, that's what he thought of his own son. Because he thought, I must move away from Maya if I have to discover wisdom. So that's, even Gautam Buddha, if you think about it, fantastic for the society that he led. Personal lives, challenges. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. He's the father of our nation, a great leader. What is his personal life like? We all know. So this is the example, of this way of life, that when you have a Maryada Purushottam, such a leader is fantastic for the society that he leads. Lot of personal challenges. There is another model as well, the Dhritarashtra model, where fantastic father, for the country, some challenges, correct? He'll do anything for his child, even sacrifice the country. Now, you'll notice Indians almost instinctively, without realizing, we clock leaders in these two groups, right? Without realizing it, because this is the model in our mind. You go to the West, you will find, I live in London, most people when they are voting, there's a line I've heard often in the West, that I will vote for a Prime Minister who I can have beer with. And I remember the first time I heard this, like, why do you want to have beer with your Prime Minister? I'll vote for someone who can do, good work for me, right? And Indians, if you notice, tend to vote, and male or female, they tend to like leaders who are individual, right? Male or female. You go through our last 70 years. They are among our most powerful leaders. I call that the Ram paradigm that exists in the back of our mind. We don't even know it. Why? Because we are the praja, right? But if we were the family, could we have complaints? Yes. So that's all that I'm trying to say. That try and understand. Even if we assume that Uttarakhand was actually there, what does it mean? And to then come back to your point that he was so good to women who were not a part of his family, right? But even as a very proud Lord Ram devotee, any Lord Ram devotee, will they say that Sita Ma was not treated correctly? Yes, we'll admit that. Of course she wasn't, right? But that doesn't take away from the fact that we idealize Lord Ram and look up to Ram Raja. That's the point I made in that article.
Sir, as we move into the second and third book of the Shiva series, we get to know that the Somras is not as divine as we thought it was. How did you come up with the idea of portraying it so differently?
The point is actually because I was talking about the concept of evil. And again, if I was, if I was speaking in Sanskrit, then the entire philosophy of the Shiva Trilogy could have been, conveyed in very precise terms, because as Sir would know, there is no translation for the English word evil also in Sanskrit. So the concept was that when you use good in excess, it turns evil, right? So even in the modern day, if you think about it, fossil fuels, which was good for for our way of life, cheap energy, a lot of us are leading great lives thanks to that. Is it now turning evil because of environmental issues? Perhaps yes. Mobile phones, it was so good for some time, right? Access to knowledge, and so many people across the world could learn so much. But now is it turning into a bit of an evil? So the concept really was that good, when used in excess, turns evil. Dharma is that which causes balance. Adharma is unbalance. So if we can keep things in a sense of balance, then evil will not need to rise.
Thank you, sir.
So besides being an author and columnist, you are also the director of Nehru Centre, London, which works to facilitate the intercultural dialogue between India and UK. Why is it so important for a person like you to engage in diplomatic work of this kind?
If you ask me, it's a privilege. Yeah, India has to. We are becoming a much more serious country. Today, this year, our GDP has gone ahead of that of the UK. All of you should applaud for this, because every Indian has contributed to this. The last time our GDP was ahead of that of the UK was 150 years ago. And most economists will tell you the estimates are that on a purchasing power parity basis over the next 25 years, India's per capita income will become higher than the per capita income of every European. Can you imagine that? The last time this happened was 900 years ago. What we lost over 900 years, we're going to recover just in the next 25. What that means is, as we become a more serious country will have hard power. Hard power means, economic strength, military strength, police strength. As the commissioner here will enforce the coercive and the hard power strength. But there is, all serious countries have soft power as well, because soft power is essentially attracting others to our culture, as America does today. So this is a project that I think every Indian should be involved in. We are all ambassadors of Indian culture. I've been given the privilege of a role to do it at an official level. I'm loving the job that I'm doing.